You're tuning into the Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal podcast. If you have a story or a guest recommendation that you think others need to hear, email me at wildweirdandsometimesnormal@gmail.com. Let's get this started. Alex and Brett, kick it!
Wild. Wild. Weird. And sometimes wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. Wild. Weird. And sometimes normal.
On this episode, I'm joined by Jamie and Brenda from the Paranormal Blues Band, Fossils from the Future. What's better than a blues riff and a song about Bigfoot? Honestly, nothing. We deep dive into the music process, goals for the band, and how Jamie considers doing hours-long YouTube and podcast deep dives into the weird counts as work for the band. Actually, I'm just jealous. We also cover all things UFOs, cryptids, and my favorite part of the interview is Jamie and Brenda were not fully aware of the mud flood theory, but coincidentally, Jamie actually saw a storefront with doors and windows in the basement of a marketing agency in Philadelphia. Actual mud flood evidence in my backyard? I'm going to have to make a trip across the river and see if anyone will let me in to investigate for myself. Anyway, give Fossils from the Future a follow and let them know you heard them on Wild and Weird. Enjoy the show. Are you looking for CBD for your pet? My friends at Pure Pet Wellness have what you need. They use the highest quality ingredients. While other companies may use synthetic oils in their CBD, Pure Pet Wellness uses organic ingredients. Organically grown hemp, organic coconut oil, organic shea butter, organic beeswax, and that's just to name a few. A family-owned and operated company that also offers fast shipping. Go to purepetwellness.com for all your pet's CBD needs and use the discount code WILD and WEIRD at checkout. That's WILD, A-N-D, WEIRD. Treat your animal right. Go to purepetwellness.com. Are you looking to buy a home in New Jersey, escape the city and move to the suburbs? Finally purchase a vacation home on the lake or down the shore? Maybe you're one of the lucky ones who are retiring and moving out of state. If so, let me help you. Keller Williams and the Real Estate Professional Group have what you need to make your goals come true. Reach out and have a conversation with someone who will put you first. Contact Brian McCoach at 856-321-1212 or email brianmccoach@kw.com. Welcome to another episode of Wild, Weird, and Sometimes Normal. I'm your host, Brian, and tonight my guest is Jamie and Brenda from the band Fossils from the Future. Welcome, guys.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. We had some technical difficulties. I was really showing my age. There was Dropbox issues. There was click this link, and it required double clicking. I just couldn't get it down. But hey, we fought through this. Like that alone just be its own episode. People would be so proud of us. But I appreciate you guys coming on. I've been begging Brenda for this one for a little bit. We finally got our schedules to work out. But you guys are Fossils from the Future.
Yeah.
Can you give me a little background into that? I was listening to Big Bad Wolf the other day. Solid song.
Nice.
Can you give me a little background how this started? How we have your shirt is awesome with the UFO and it's sucking up the Fossil from the Future little logo. There's Big Bad Wolf songs. There's cryptid songs. There's a lot going on. How did all this come together?
It started as a Halloween costume. Friends of mine and I were in Pittsburgh one weekend. Oh, wow. At this point, maybe like 6-7 years ago. And my costume for the night was a fossil. I just had this basic, remember in Karate Kid when Johnny and all his friends had that outfit and it was like the black with all the bones. I had this little cheap costume like that I just zipped up, and I had a dinosaur hat. So I just said I'm a fossil because it was just basic and last minute kind of thing. And my buddy and I were in a store and we were looking at the sunglasses, and he picked up this pair of like really futuristic looking sunglasses. And he goes, "Hey, you should wear this with your costume tonight." And I was like, "No," I said, "I'm a fossil. Those are futuristic. I'm a fossil." And he goes, "Future fossil." And I was like, "Oh, I kind of like that." Okay. So then I'm thinking, putting, obviously like, I'm still thinking about it. Like hours later, I'm like, oh, so I'm a future fossil. I'm a fossil from the future. And I like the alliteration of that. And
Yeah.
then I thought, oh, you know what? That could be a cool band name. And so I went to GoDaddy and I searched fossilsfromthefuture.com and it wasn't taken. So there you go. And it was just a kind of a joke thing. And then the more I liked it, and the more I thought about it, like, I think this could be a concept for a band, because I love the paranormal and I love rock and roll. And so I thought I'd put the two together, and here we are.
That's awesome. I just think it's so creative. Rarely do you see, like, I don't think I've heard of a band like really doing full paranormal like that. I did interview a guy who's over in England, and he wrote a book on ghost, and then he would have some of his songs, but it was more like trippy and almost like that David Bowie and like that synth sound that gets you kind of like sleepy as you're doing it. But it was very good stuff over there. But it was very much more, that was like fossils from the past. So he's like talking like 1900 sailors and 1800 Civil War, and but like still good stuff. But like from the future, completely different. How did you get started in the paranormal? Like, what gauged your interest in that? At what age did that start?
I mean, I've always been fascinated with it. Like as a kid, I remember going to the library and looking up, getting books out on the Loch Ness monster. Not that that's paranormal, but I just, always into that kind of thing, and UFOs and spaceships and aliens. And I wasn't really into Bigfoot as a kid. It just, I don't know, I guess it didn't really interest me that much. But then years have passed, and the more that I've delved deeper into the topic, I've figured out like connections and things. I've seen connections to between Bigfoot and space, and then you think of like Chewbacca, he's a Bigfoot and he's in space. So like, wait a minute,
They have their whole
like,
planet. I mean, the Christmas special was their entire planet, so entire Bigfoot planet.
So yeah, I mean, it's just gone from there. And then I had this job where I met who's now a really good friend of mine. His name is Justin Bamforth. He's an author and a podcaster in this realm. And we would have lunch together every day, and we would talk about these topics. And then he was served as like a gatekeeper in a way, where he was like, "Oh, you really like this stuff? Well, watch this, or look at this, or read this." And then he fed me targeted information that really opened my eyes and changed my whole world.
At what point, we're going to get you in on this too, Brenda. So I'm going to do this one, and then we're all on you, Brenda, and Jamie's done. He's talked for 2 minutes, and so
No.
at what point did it come to you that you're going to take what you've been loving since a kid, you've been following, and I assume music since you were a kid? When did it become obvious to you to merge those two?
So during the quarantine portion of the pandemic, I was bored. I didn't have work. I didn't have much to do. So I got this idea to draw Bigfoot the monster driving Bigfoot the monster truck through space. It was just something to do, really. And so I started drawing this and started doing, looking out. I always loved Bigfoot trucks as a kid. And then I was like, wait a minute, when I finished it, I was like, this could be a song. So and then I started doing research and stuff on Bigfoot and watching all these Bigfoot movies and documentaries and stuff. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, I can make a song about this. Because again, it was during quarantine. I didn't have much else to do. So I wrote a Bigfoot song. And then from there, I was like, I can make a whole band around this. And I was like, wait a minute, what if all of the songs are about different facets of the paranormal? And it can become a vehicle to show people that Bigfoot and ghosts and aliens and werewolves and cryptids, and all of it is part of the same thing. It's not, for the longest time, the ghost hunters and the ghost researchers, they were over here, and the alien people were over here. And it was always like this separate thing. And then the more I've studied it, the more I've realized that it really is all part of the same world, the same paranormal universe.
Brenda, at what point did he trick you into this band? And are you planning on running out of the room at this minute?
No, I actually really, really believe in like a lot of all these theories that he's been showing to me, and it has opened my eyes, because now I feel like it's just, there's so many more things in this universe that a lot of people don't pay attention to, or they just write off. It's kind of cool to me to think that there's something else out there and fun to believe in, because when you're a kid and you have all these great things, then you find out everything's fake, everything's a lie. And that kind of smashes for your creativity and just all of the cool things that you like about being a kid. So just having all these like theories and everything, and just the possibilities of having all these different things is really, really cool. And I mean, who's to say like what's like real and what couldn't be? Like, I don't know. Like, for me, I feel like it's just amazing just hearing all of this stuff.
So you're talking about you're a kid, so as you're growing up and like the lies are shattered. Why is there this step level pyramid of lies that they're like, oh, it's Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus, and then like shatter that and like destroy you as a kid? And then kids tend to get excited about UFOs and monsters. And then the
Right.
government's like, nope, that's a lie too. And that doesn't exist. But like now it's kind of coming back around that it's really not a lie at all. Like it
Right.
just sets you up like all the time with this crushing of like, the older you get, the more you found out that you've been lied to, just nonstop.
Yeah, it is nonstop because it's kind of crazy. Like they kind of like trick you into thinking that amazing things and different things from different realms can't be possible. And I think that's why they instill all of these things in us when we're children, and then just make it like, oh, it's a lie. Just like the same thing that I think the world's doing now to everybody.
I loved all this stuff as a kid, not the lie part. I love the cryptids and the UFOs, and all was one. And Jamie used to being like separate camps now, and like that's like clicking for me. I still love them all. Like they're all in my camp. Why can't we all just hang out? But like there are a lot of people like, oh, Bigfoot's stupid, but aliens, that's 100% real. Other people like aliens, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. But there's definitely an ape hiding in the woods over here. And you're like, well, okay, like they're both hard to prove, but some really good stories out there and some good evidence here or there. But like, why can't we just believe in different things? And then some of the things that science comes out and they talk about spooky action in physics, that like one thing happens here, but the other one happens if an atom turns one way and then it's connecting neutron a million miles away can turn the exact same way. But okay, I'm supposed to believe in that you can't even see this stuff on, like, this is all molecular level. And I'm supposed to believe that completely. But then people are like, oh, a ghost broke a plate, opened a drawer, a Bigfoot was rummaging through my garbage. Like, that's a lie. Just crazy.
It's kind of insane that you're just supposed to believe everything that people tell you. It's just insane.
Yeah, it's hard. All right, so Brenda, you're the bassist for the band, and Jamie, lead singer?
And guitar.
Okay. Lead singer and guitar. How does the music process come about? Is everybody on board that it's always going to be paranormal, or are people trying to bring in more mainstream view of some songs and then you also do the paranormal, or is it just 100% we're on board, this is what's happening?
The concept of the band is that it's paranormal blues rock. So I write the music, and Brenda and I have been working on a couple songs together. Actually, we wrote one song and recorded a demo of it already, and we've wrote another song, but we haven't started recording it yet. That's partially why the other members of the band are not here, because they are interested in the topic, but they're not as well versed in it. So, I mean, I think they could probably give overarching statements about it, but I don't think they could talk to specifics. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I thought, you guys can sit this one out, because I basically bring the stuff to the table. Like, I have an idea. Here's a song, and then I'm pretty specific about the music. I'm in another band too with the drummer from Fossils from the Future, and it's his band more or less, and he directs it very differently than how I direct this band. So it's good to have, all the facets and things.
Different outlets.
Yeah, different outlets, exactly.
Yeah.
But usually songs come in all different ways. Melody, sometimes it'll start with the melody. Sometimes I'll hear a line from something, from a movie or from a book or from something, and I'll think, oh, that could work as a song, or just a concept in general. And then maybe I'll have an idea about, we should write a song about this. And then I'll have an idea, like a musical piece idea that doesn't have any words or anything beyond just an idea. And I could be like, oh, I can apply this song to this idea, make it come together that way. I mean, lately, we're almost finished with writing the album, our album. So we've gotten down to the point where we're like, okay, we have a song about aliens, we have a song about Bigfoot, we have a song about Big Bad Wolf. What other areas that we want to address? And so we don't want to make the album 100 songs. So we're trying to pick and choose the different topics and things. So we're like, okay, well, what about a vampire? We should write a song about a vampire. And so that's what we're working on right now, actually.
Don't limit yourself. This could always be like the Tupac All Eyes on Me double album. Like, if you need 100 songs, like, don't. This guy's still releasing music. He's been dead for 10 years. Like, don't worry. Like, even more than that, 25 years.
That's well, that's also part of the concept in a way. I thought, you know what? There's enough material in this arena that we could just keep writing albums. There's so many things that there's enough out there that we could base songs on to just continue to make albums. Or this just exists for one album and that's it. Time will tell. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But it's fun, so we're going with it right now.
And just in general, or not even just for the band. And everything I'm saying, like, we're both smiling as we're saying this. Like, I think you guys know that I'm joking with you, but sometimes the laughs aren't coming across on the microphone. But I see you on video doing it, so it's good. Are you fully in the how deep are you going, man? How deep the rabbit hole are you? Are you just paranormal, or do you get into full conspiracy theories? Are we living in the Matrix?
I keep one foot in the conspiracy world. I wouldn't say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but it's always good to look at both sides. People disagree with you, or if people don't believe the same thing that you believe, it's good to hear their points, because then you can use what they're saying to help inform your thoughts and your perspective on that topic. Basically, like when I first started the idea for this band, I thought, you know what? I'll write the songs about paranormal topics, but I won't say it in there. The only thing that will give away what the song is about will be the artwork. So the song could be about anything, really. I mean, and how many times does that happen with music, that you can have a song that means so much to you because you can relate it to a certain experience in your life, and then come to find out when the songwriter wrote the song, that's not at all what they were writing about. So I thought, oh, that's good, because the point of this band is to try to reach, yes and no. Like, I want to say, like, you want to reach as many people as possible, but not really. What I mean by that is not numbers, more of like an all ages kind of thing. I span the spectrum of ages, basically. Then I thought, well, people are not always with it. So I thought, you know, sometimes you have to point to things. So then I thought, well, okay, I'm going to have to actually say what these things are for people to get it. And then now at our shows, we have people come dressed up in costumes, and people still don't get it, which is so funny. I mean, we have a song about Bigfoot. It's called Big Man because I didn't want to sing Bigfoot. And we have a guy in a Bigfoot costume, and people are calling him a monkey. Like, oh, you got a monkey. Like, no, it's not a monkey.
They'll get it. They'll get it.
To the song. But
yeah.
I mean, you know, that's just how society is, basically.
So you're talking about the lyrics, and I interviewed the lead singer of Cross Keys. They're a Philadelphia punk band. Josh Alvarez. He's a good dude. So he wrote all the lyrics for their Believes in You album. And we're going through, talking back and forth, and it comes on the part. He's like, oh, one of my buddies loved the lyric, and it was something close to, I stare at the stars, but I still can't relate to them, something like that. And the guy just found it so beautiful. And he's like, I have it inscribed inside of my wedding ring. And like, my wife and I love that. And he's like, dude, I was working in a psych hospital, and like there was a game show on with celebrities. And I'm like, I'm staring at the stars, but I can't relate to them. And he's like, because I can't hear what they're saying because it's on mute. And he's like, there's nothing to do with like, but he heard it and it spoke to him in a different way. And, you know, this is the Can't Hardly Wait of Barry Manilow wrote about Mandy. He's like, dude, it's about his dog.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You try to leave it wide open. This way it can appeal to all ages. And it's not just, you know, you keep, you know, Bigfoot. And people are like, well, that maybe work on the hook a little bit, but yeah, you spend the big man, and it speaks to different things to people. But you're also then like, you know, that little bit of a red pill of like, hey guys, we're going to get you on it. We're going to get you into the paranormal.
Exactly. You got it. Exactly, Brian.
So I like that your shows are like this Rocky Horror Picture Show, like people coming up all dressed, like ready to go. So summertime in a Bigfoot costume can't be great.
No, our poor friend, he loves it though. Our friend Rich, he loves it, and like he takes the costume and he stays in it. And like first the idea was like, you know what we'll do? There's an intro part of the song, and it's just this little melody, and it gives me a chance to switch guitars, and it also gives him a chance to come in and introduce himself and, you know, walk around and everything. And then that became no. You come during the show and he just sits in the costume and he's just around. And then when we play that song, that's his song. Then he gets up and he's all excited and he dances, and we bring him up on stage. And then when it's over, I'm like, so the first idea was like, this is what happened. You come in, you're out of nowhere from the back of the room. You're excited because you hear your song. And then when the song's done, you just disappear. And then you can take the costume off and then you can come hang out. He leaves it on. He leaves it on, which is great. It's amazing that he does it. But then at the end of the night, when he takes it off, I'm like, oh my God, you must have lost at least 5 pounds. And he's like, no, I love it. I love it. He's all sweating. He's like, I think it's great. I'm like, okay, well, we love him. We're so grateful.
That's gonna be great. But that costume, man, I hope he airs it out a lot. Just drive home with the windows down.
I think he like owns a costume now.
It's basically it.
Yeah, you don't want it back. He's like, it is not mine. After 3 sweat throughs, you own that automatically. But there's no coming back from that.
It's great.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Brenda.
It's been so much fun, like joining the band and just like kind of like having a chance to like form all these connections. It's been awesome. So
Do you get dressed up for the shows too? Are you out there? Are you?
yeah,
This is
where that is.
yeah, we have our
Okay.
we have outfits here.
That's not very paranormal.
Oh, you have to explain.
Well, so I didn't want to be, I don't want to be like a guar band kind of thing, right? But I also wanted to appeal to kids, and also just, I mean, for me, I mean, this is maybe a little over the top. I'll explain what this is. But for me, like, just, I've been playing in bands for years now. And one thing that always bothers me is that when people get up and play a show and they look like they just got off of work, and it's like, try. Like, you're not a rock star. Maybe you don't want to be a rock star, but at least look like it. At least look like you tried. And that always just bothered me. I'm like, I think the band should match. It doesn't necessarily mean that we all have a uniform, which is, well, now we have a uniform. But I feel like a band should look like a band. At least, even if you are wearing plain clothes, it should still match. I'm an art director and a designer. I'm a very visual person. So to me, it just makes sense in my brain that the band should match. People probably think I'm stupid or like, that's dumb, you're thinking too hard about it. But to me, I love branding, and it's what I do. So, I apply it to the band. And so it makes sense to me. But in the paranormal realm, I was trying to think of all the characters that have a part, and like, I'm not wearing makeup. Like, I'm not. I sweat a lot when I play without a Bigfoot costume. So I'm not wearing makeup that's going to drip in my mouth while I'm trying to sing and get in my eyes. Like, I don't want to wear a costume. So I was trying to think like, well, who are we and where do we fit into the paranormal, the realm? And I thought, oh, well, the military plays a huge part in this. Although the military is technically like the bad guys, I like the idea at first. I thought, oh, well, that's cool. We could all have like military outfits. We have our names. So it's on this side. We have our name, and then patches and buttons and pins and things that tie into the paranormal realm. Then recently, with David Grush coming out, which I know we're going to talk about later, with David Grush coming out as a whistleblower, I thought, that's who we are. We're whistleblowers. So we have these little whistles. I love these whistles when we were kids. It's great too, because I mean, I just love having these whistles as a kid, but also you can blow it and it's not annoying. It's not super loud. You can blow as hard as you can to this thing and it's not going to be too distracting. Because even if we're in a bar and we're having fun and you blow a whistle, people are going to might think something's wrong. So I thought, oh, this is like a low key, something's wrong. So
you're not Axl Rose in Paradise City. So I mean, he owns the whistle. That is his instrument. Right.
Oh my God, Axl.
He has the whistle.
Yeah. You don't want people to come up like, hey, Axl, calm down. So I do like your whistles.
Cool.
And I think it's a good way to get the crowd involved too. If everybody had like a crossing guard whistle, that would get really annoying really fast. Yeah. And also interrupt your song if you're not the ones blowing it. People in the crowd are like, hey, great song, guys. Like, tweet. It'll be horrible.
Exactly. Yeah. And like one of the things I want to do is somehow make this a piece of merch for people. I just haven't, I don't know. It hasn't like coalesced in my head yet, because I don't want that. I don't want people just all around just like, okay, enough with the whistle. Like, we get it, So I like the idea, but I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how it should play in, but we'll see.
You just need the necklace with the shot glass that hangs down. This way, if people want to get involved, they'll just get a little more drunk and enjoy it a lot more. Not that they're not enjoying it a ton from the beginning, but like this way, they're not going to annoy you too much. Like the slurring, like, that song. It's like, oh my God, man, calm down the drinks. We got it.
Yeah. Yes.
We're up here for an hour. We're going to jam out.
That's funny.
Yeah. Well, so what's your goal for the band? Is this your main focus? You said you're in 2 bands right now.
It's not. It's I've been in the bands that I've been in prior to this. I was more or less on a mission. music has always been a part of me. It's my passion. Besides design and stuff, like music is part of my soul. But I thought I could make a career out of it. Like, oh, you know what? So I've pushed really hard in previous bands to get my name out there and do all the social media and all the promotion and all the publicity and all the press and everything to try to like make it up the ladder. And it's happened where I've gotten up to the platform and then the ladder dropped. So it's happened a few times. So this time, like, you know what? I don't care. I don't want to do that. I just want to have fun with my friends. And that's what it's become, basically, like the experience of playing music with my best friends. And, if people want to tag along for the concept, great. If they don't, oh, well, yeah.
I like it. Spread the word, get it out to as many people as possible. Have fun while you're doing it. And then you're also like, oh, I'm doing research for the band tonight, but you're watching a UFO documentary? But no, it's research. It's research.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if people love it, great. But anything beyond what I just said is just gravy. Like right now the goal is to get an album recorded. So we got to finish a few more songs and then get into the studio and get them recorded. So that's the immediate goal.
That's awesome. Do you have all songs are ready to go, or you're still working on that part and then you're going to go into the recording?
Well, I want to have at least 10 songs, and we have 7. We have 7 songs, and one that's not recorded yet, one that we just started working on. And then we have some ideas and just little loose ends from the other ones. So we're almost there. As far as getting it all written, there are demos online of 4 or 5 of the songs. I just finished another one. I just haven't finished the artwork yet, so I haven't put it up online yet. But yeah, I mean, I want to do a demo for each song, more or less to serve as pre-production for when we go into the studio. But I'm not sure if I'm going to keep. I don't know. I'm very like everything I do. I think out ahead of time, and I have a plan. I make a blueprint. Whether it's physical or in my head, and I follow that blueprint to reach the goal. And with this, it's just, I just take it as it comes, basically. And I come up with an idea and I go after it. And I don't want to put too much pressure on it, because then once the pressure is in there, then it becomes a job and then it's not as fun. Now, granted, if this did become our job, great. Now we deal with the pressure, but not really trying to push for that. If it happens, it happens. If not, we're having fun.
And then an idea for an 11th song, the hook can just be, I'm never going on wild and weird again. And the whole crowd will just chant it like over and over, and they like jump up and down.
No, we're going to give you, yeah, this is great. We'll give you a shout out on the record for sure.
All right. I love it. All right. So let's get into some of the weird stuff.
Yeah.
UFOs. You're a big fan of UFOs. I know Brenda does deep dives with you. She's looking at videos. What do you think the best evidence out there is for a UFO?
So there's actually a lot. And it's funny because, people complain all the time, and rightfully so. Like, there's never a real picture. There's never a real video. It's always blurry. It's, where's the real proof? But the thing is, like, you can show someone a blurry picture and they'll say that's fake. And then you can show someone a crystal clear picture and they'll say that's too real. It's fake. This looks too blurry. It can't be real. This looks too real. It can't be real. So there is lots of evidence out there. And I tried to narrow it down to one, and I don't have just one. Like, I actually have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 examples for you.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So
this is like Pee Wee Herman when he went to get his bike back, and he's like, Exhibit Double Z.
Oh, Jamie loves Pee Wee.
I love Pee Wee.
There he is. Yeah.
He's my homie.
Yeah. I'm ready. You came prepared. You sent me a Dropbox file. I had no idea how to open it, but we're here. I love it.
Okay.
Because half the time you get in, you're like, "Oh, did you ever see that picture?" And I go, "Which one?" No, it was like blurry. You're like, "Oh, it was this." But we're gonna have it. Let's go.
Yeah. So I have some like varying ranges of pictures. I tried to put them in some date order, but like the first one, I'm trying to think. So what do you think is the best way to do this, Brian? Should I put it up on the screen and share it, like show it?
Yeah, you can do that if you want to share, and then we'll make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Okay, so here's one. This is the Battle of Los Angeles.
Okay. All right, Battle of Los Angeles. This took place February at night between February 24th and 25th of 1942. World War II. Sirens are going off. There is an enemy attack coming over to Los Angeles, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, I don't know all the specifics off the top of my head. I'm just familiar with this. And I know that and when you look in this photo, you can see they have all the spotlights up on this thing and they were shooting at it, which is stupid. Okay. I don't think anything happened. I don't think it shot back or anything like that, but like, how stupid. Here's something we don't know what it is. Let's shoot it. I mean, okay, that makes zero sense. But there was this photo that was taken, and you can see, I mean, in the clouds that there are lights on there. And when I first saw this picture, when I first became aware of it, I thought the little lights in there were UFOs. I thought they were separate little ships or things, but they are lights on one big structure.
So all the lights, all the beams are crossed. They went against Egon's advice. They crossed the streams. Here we are illuminating the UFO. And I think all those lights around it are the bullets that they're firing at it.
Oh, I thought that's what it was too, but they're actually spotlights. So they put spotlights up on it and then they shot bullets and machine guns at it and nothing happened, obviously. And then I think
the little dots around it, I think, are the machine gun rounds, not the big beams. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Nothing happened to it.
Nothing happened. And I think it just disappeared and went away.
Yeah. But there's something in the center of the spotlight. There is something there.
Yeah. I see like a definite shape in the center.
Yeah. There's structure of some sort.
Yeah, there's something there. And I mean, and this was in 1942. They didn't have Photoshop in 1942. So what is that? You know, and I know, and there's other photos too. I mean, that's the thing. There's so many photos, like the McMenamin, I think, photo it is, where like two farmer and his wife saw something and they took pictures. That's like the earliest known photo. I think it's like before this. But I wanted to give stuff that was like, you know, like this is something that a lot of people are familiar with, but I wanted to try to like pull some things that weren't the same things over and over again. So
this was thousands of people. This is downtown Los Angeles, then right on to the beach, and it's right on the coast right there. This isn't the, middle of Oklahoma, right. The not populated one person's farm. And they're like, oh, believe me, I saw it. And hey, I do believe you that you saw it, but also it helps when there's 9,000 other people to back up your story. So do you know what the official explanation is for this?
I don't. I'm sure they said they didn't know what it was, or we don't know what it was. And then they just moving on.
So apparently there was, I think in San Francisco, there was a giant balloon that they said broke free and then floated down towards Los Angeles. And this is like the official government response for this. This is not a UFO. They shot thousands of rounds at a balloon. Didn't happen to pierce it or break it or have it deflate or anything the entire time. Just absolutely ridiculous. Like this isn't like swamp gas are infuriating.
Right.
They tried to say it was the balloon, Brian.
They said it was a balloon that broke free of its mooring in San Francisco, and somehow it's supposed to deter. I guess if the Japanese were to fly over, it would somehow give some type of warning or confused. I guess turn around. I don't know, but this is what the government said, that it broke free and then drifted down from there.
Right. Okay. I mean, same with the Phoenix Lights, right? All those people saw that, and then they said, "Oh no, it was flares." But then the governor, Fife Symington, after that, he was put under pressure to say that that it was just flares, and then he's been interviewed after that happened, and he's like, "No, I was there. I saw it. I know what it was. I know. Well, I don't know what it was, but I know that I saw what everyone else saw." But as a person in government, he couldn't say that back then. So everyone was really disappointed and mad at him. But then he came out after to say, no, I saw the same thing that you saw. I was put under pressure to say that we think it's just flares. And then there was a woman, Frances, I can't think, something with a B. I can't think of her last name, but Barwell or something. She was a congresswoman at that time that was pushing for it, because they were just trying to sweep it under the rug. And then she was pushing for it to no, we want an explanation. What is this? And the rest is history.
I'm 99% sure that I heard Steve Kerr on a podcast, the head coach of the Golden State Warriors, and he was in Phoenix at that time, and he saw them.
Oh.
But he hasn't come out and talked about that, and except for the last few years. And he's like, well, it really was strange, but also like I had a career and I had goals that I wanted to do, and I did not want to get labeled crazy. And it's the same thing with the person in government. It's like, hey, we have two people to choose from. The guy is running around at that time in the 90s. It wasn't as popular and you're still a little crackpotty if you were going around talking about aliens, even though an entire city saw this stuff.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy.
Okay,
Now I'm happy that it has switched to the point where you're almost crazy if you say there isn't aliens.
right? Yeah, it took
Yep.
it took some time, which was part of the plan. It took some time to get to this point. Now that it's at this point, I mean, it's the same. Everyone keeps saying the same thing, but it's like the cat's out of the bag and they can't. Or the toothpaste is out of the tube, you can't put it back in the tube, and that's where we are. All right, so the second one I wanted to talk about was September 1971, Lake, I think it's Cote. I don't know if it's Cote or Cote. I just put the link in the little.
Let me go to that.
The little guy there. Yeah, this China one too is pretty huge, but I want to talk about this Cote one. But this was someone in an airplane was flying and taking photos, and he took us actually. So if you scroll down on there to the second September 7, 1971 thing, so the second one, the first one's a huge file. Yeah, that one. So this pilot had a camera mounted to the bottom of the plane. I forget what he was taking pictures of, but this showed up in a frame in the middle of a few frames. So he was taking a picture of whatever it was he was doing, for topography. I forget what he was shooting. I know this is terrible on my part because I'm trying to show you evidence and I don't even know what it's for. But there is a link also that I'm including the PDF that has from the History Channel. They talk more. There's a little video on YouTube that they talk more in detail about it. The details that I'm forgetting right now, but this was taken and like nothing in one frame, nothing in another frame. Then this one. And then in the next frame, it wasn't there. So people were saying, oh, well, maybe what it is maybe a rock came up and hit the bottom of the glass of the frame. And that's kind of what the object looks like, that it could be like I don't know if you've ever seen a window with a BB gun that is shot at, that's what it looks like. The glass looks like that. But then why would it be gone in the next frame after? So they got the negative from this, and they did a drum scan, which is a super duper high res scan of the negative. And obviously you're not gonna be able to tell from the screen here, but it's super high res. And if you look closely at it, it looks like a relic it looks like a flying saucer. And so there have been reports of flying saucers when they've seen them that they don't necessarily look brand new and chrome and shiny. Some of them look very old. And so they could just be old, or maybe because they've, flown from billions and trillions of miles, or not. Maybe they just dipped in and out of the dimension. And but this is a case of they think that's what happened. The guy was taking pictures and it revealed itself, came into our reality enough to take one picture and then disappeared. UFOs have shown, like the Tic Tac case, the famous Tic Tac case now that everyone knows about. They've shown precognitive ability where they know what it's like they know what you're thinking and where you're supposed to go, what you're looking at, and then they choose to reveal themselves. So this could be a case of that. Again, like looking at it on the screen here, it doesn't look so great, but if you look separately at the photo, it's incredible. It's very, very sharp and clear. My favorite one, which is weird because I kind of discovered this on my own. I found something that corroborates what I've seen separately. So July 7th, 2010, there was a UFO in China and it shut down the airport. I think it's pronounced Zhoushan Airport. The UFO disrupted air traffic at the airport. Nearly 20 flights were diverted and some 2,000 passengers were affected. So these are the photos of that. It's a cigar-shaped craft, which is, there's several shapes and sizes of these UFOs. Some of them are 40 feet wide. Some of them are 400 yards wide. So they come, who knows where they come from, but they're all different shapes and sizes. But the earliest depictions of UFOs are, some of them are the cigar shape. So now what we're looking at now is the one on the upper left was in China. And the bottom one is a clip from a video in Paris. That's the same ship. It may not be the exact same ship, but it's, from the same factory, wherever it came from.
It's doing the same thing.
It's doing the same thing. Who knows what it's doing, but it's doing the same thing. Now, the crazy thing is I came across, not looking up this, but one night I was going down the YouTube rabbit hole and I came across this video that somebody took so basically someone was watching a football game. It was the Colts versus the Saints, October 23rd, which was 2 days ago, October 23rd, 2011. And I'll send you the link of the video, but they're watching the game and it's like in between plays and the camera pans to the skyline and there's a church and you just see like it's nighttime and you see the skyline behind the game. Like the game's going on, they're just showing a shot of the nighttime skyline. And you just see this very quick, like this light. There's like, and I'm like, what is that? So I don't think if I remember correctly, the sportscasters didn't address it. They just, showed this clip and then it just went back to the game again. Well, this guy used his phone, he filmed his TV, and then on the TV, he pauses the game and then he's skipping through a frame at a time. And the light thing slowed down when it's paused is this ship.
Whoa.
And it's crazy because it's either like at the time when I saw it, I was like, oh yeah, that's people say like they fly erratically. Like first there's a ship over here, you can see it over here, and then it's instantaneously across the other side of the horizon like that. Or you'll see it flying and then it'll make a 90-degree turn, which is impossible. But now I'm thinking, I mean, there's so many different facets to this, but a possibility could be that it's not coming from space and it's coming from another dimension. And so what we're seeing is either it could be a projection, a hologram, or it could just be how it's being interpreted in our world. Like, so we'll see something doing like this. Maybe it's not really doing it like that, flying like that, but that's just how our measly eyes interpret what's actually happening. But if you watch that video, it's very crazy because you see, it's like, oh my God, it's that China UFO that's also the Paris UFO, and it flew over the United States. So it to me, it's like it's credible proof. It's crazy. It's crazy, but you'll love it if you see this video. It's really awesome.
No, I love that, and I'm excited to see it. So the one thing that Bob Lazar talked about was that their propulsion system almost seemed like it was like tilted forward and kind of like falling, but in controlled falling. So you wouldn't expect that if it was if there was an engine and was pushing it out, it would kind of level the thing out and make it go. But this was almost seemed like it was sucking things out from in front of it, and that could give it more of the ability to fall or go places if you're actually removing gravity and atmosphere and things like that and just going down. Now, also, there's this Carl Sagan video that guy's way too smart for me to follow anything, and I'm trying to do it. And he's explaining how we're three-dimensional beings being projected into a two-dimensional world and like how we actually look versus like how we see things. Then he's trying to do a four-dimensional one. But the whole time he's like, I can't show you a four-dimensional figure because we live in a three-dimensional world being projected on the 2D. But if it was coming through our space, this giant, like the square, you would see all sides of the square at the same time and see inside of the square. And it almost looked like a cube was inside of the square. And as it would come through, you'd only see a sliver of it as it was passing through our world because it can't exist in here. And David Grush kind of touched on this during his testimony, I think in late June, I think is when he testified. And he started getting into how we project into a different world. And the congressman actually, Congress has no desire to hear anything except for themselves talk. Similar to what I'm doing here. I should be a congressman. They just want to hear themselves talk. But he's telling them about like, oh, well, the 3D and the 2D, like, but David, calm down the science here. Hold on 1 second. I need to interject something. One guy's, it was his wife's birthday and spent 30 seconds wishing her happy birthday, which is great. But you also have a guy saying we have alien ships. Like, lay out your 10 questions real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, that hearing was well, speaking of Bob Lazar, one of the examples that I think I don't know, you know what? I don't think I included. No. Okay. So it's not included in this list, but it's going to be included in the email that I send you. I just watched I watched recently a documentary. A podcast where this guy, his name is Luigi Vendiletti or something. He met with Bob Lazar and decided to make a movie based on virtual reality renderings of the sport model UFO that Bob Lazar worked on. And they showed, he was on Richard Dolan's podcast, and they showed some still frames, and they were incredible. They were put together with this technology called like Unreal Engine. It's some kind of 3D modeling software. And they worked with Bob to make sure that everything was as he remembered. And, it's the closest thing we'll ever get to a photo of that ship. And it's incredible. Speaking of, Bob wasn't aware of where it came from, but he was told that it was found at an archaeological dig. So that ship was very old. So that's a fossil from the future. So I use that ship in some artwork for one of the songs that we did, because I'm like, oh, that's a fossil from the future.
So they have during Ross Coulthard, how do you say his name? I butcher it all the time. The reporter that interviewed David Grush originally, and he went on to say that there is a UFO that is so big that they couldn't move it and had to build a building on top of it, and sent a lot of people off on a rabbit hole of like, let's try to find buildings and obviously be a security site. And somewhere in my depths of Twitter, and I don't let this thought hold a lot of water, but there is a small movement of that this UFO is under the Sphinx. And this is what Edgar Cayce talked about, of this is there's a tomb of knowledge and things like that he had. Edgar Cayce was a sleeping prophet. He would lay down and go in these little dream state like things, and he would rattle off. He healed so many people by telling them what was wrong with them or cured things. He was able to remote view. And so one of his things during his sleeping prophet time was that under the Great Sphinx Paul is this chamber of knowledge. And now people are trying to tie that to being the UFO, and is that the building that was built on top of it? I feel like that's not what Ross was talking about, that this was a modern building built on top of it. But I'm also here for everything, so I don't know.
Exactly. I'm right with you. It could be that could be another one, or he might have been talking about something else, because the pyramids were not what we think they were. They're not tombs. They weren't designed to be tombs. They very well could have been a power source. They're set up for that, but like power on like a massive scale, but they were not tombs. So plus there's so many things coming out now that are just changing the course of history and the timing of everything and how old things are. Things are actually a lot older than we think they are. People have been around longer than we think they've been. And I also saw another podcast, the Concrete Podcast, which is really awesome, where this guy, I can't think of his name, was talking about how a lot of the things in Egypt were there already. And then the Egyptians came in and engraved over top of them. He also found evidence of saw marks on a lot of the stones that are there, where some of the stones that they're so perfectly tight that you can't even fit a piece of paper in between. Like, how did they do that? And then, obviously we think, wow, it must have been the aliens, must have helped them. And like, how do these stones that came from hundreds of miles away? Back then we didn't have the technology to move that, or did we? And then he shows these pictures of these giant stones where you can see that there's saw marks. Now, he does a better job explaining it to me, because you could just be like, well, that could be anything, but the way that this guy explains it and shows the evidence, you're like, oh my goodness, I think he's right.
Yeah, there's one coffin, I think it's in the British Museum, and it's an Egyptian coffin, and it just has 90-degree angles, and like you can see some of the saw marks on there. And they've had I guess different archaeologists or alternative archaeologists go there, and they try to, it's a legitimate conversation. This isn't like this like gotcha journalism or anything, but as they're talking to the person, just trying to get their wheels turning of like, oh, so this was done with, rubbing a stick around it. Like, oh yeah, that's what they had at that period. Like, okay, so like, what is this? And like really slowly dragging that horse to water, for them to be like, and we're done, and we're leaving. Yeah.
I used to want to be an archaeologist. I used to want to learn all that stuff and how they made all that good stuff.
And then what happened?
I became a hairstylist.
You joined Fossils from the Future. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Not just any hairstylist, the best.
Oh, the best.
Yeah. What was I going to bring up? Oh, I saw, got pulled into another maybe Instagram video or something, but they were showing pressured water, almost like a pressure washer, like high industrial, cutting through like anything. They cut a computer in half. They went down through a car and cut it in half with water. So these future technologies that we didn't have could also just be regular things that we're just not thinking. I hate the term of thinking outside the box. Like that means like, you can only think like within here. Like you should always be like, well, you know, why is there a box to begin with? And this is like very stoner and stupid way of thinking of things. But like you put yourself in that box, and the reason we can't have free energy and we can't have travel to the moon in a heartbeat is because you're like, well, the laws of physics. Well, who says they're the mostly laws of physics? But like there has to be like other things that like we're not. But these refuse to investigate them. So them saying like, oh, they shouldn't have had this power washer that, you know, maybe there was the windmill, you know, the one in the water, the paddle boat turner, like maybe
the ferry
that
thing, like the thing on the ferry.
yeah, right, like the ferry thing there to like produce more water and energy to do this, like that could have been something, but they just sit here and go, no, they didn't have. The Stone Age was only at this time, and the Bronze Age was this time, and like, okay, how do we get all this stuff?
Exactly. It's coming out. More and more stuff is coming out now. Graham Hancock.
I love him and Randall
man,
Carlson. Yeah.
The guys pointed out so many things that they banned him. They banned him from that Snake Mountain thing, not Snake Mountain, but it's called something, the Snake thing. He pointed out so many things that people didn't want to, they don't want to think it and they don't want to hear it. So they banned him from it. How do you get banned from a public national monument? Like, come on. But yeah, him. And then I can't think of the other guy's name. I'm so terrible with names and things. But his buddy, Randall Carlson.
Yeah, Randall's great.
Oh man, the stuff that they talk about is just, it's incredible. It makes you think. It makes you think. And you know, we're definitely at a point now where I think technology, for better or worse, has invaded our lives so much, it's made so many things possible that weren't possible before, and it's connected so many people in ways that were never possible before, that now the information is just slowly but surely, you know, it's making its way out into the world, and I'm here for it. It's a crazy time to be alive right now. It's amazing. It's insane. It's amazing. Hopefully the world's around long enough for us to continue to see it. We're going to see what happens, but
I'm hoping the world's around long enough for me to add this podcast and put it up. We'll see what's happening. It gets slippery quick around here. It is, man. Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock were on Joe Rogan's show in late December. And they were going over the usual Randall and Graham stuff, which I love. And it's hard to understand why it's not accepted more by the mainstream. That like the Younger Dryas period and this comet and it melted the ice caps. And, you know, he has the Niagara Falls was like done in a matter of days and not millions of years. And you can actually see where it's carved. And there's a place in Minnesota and you can see where it's carved. It's really amazing stuff. And I think if you went there with this open mind, you would see it more. But a lot of people write books and they have tenure at colleges. And, you know, that's your whole existence. So they hold on to that. I do think there's going to be a new generation of archaeologists and thinkers and things coming along that have grown up on this. So during that interview in December, Randall started talking about some of the other projects he's working on. And this is some of the Tesla technology. This is some of the free energy. And they have the working devices in the Maldives, whatever. They have the working devices there. And this way, I don't know, it kind of seems it might be a little shady over there. And there's like no governments can control you. So he was going to come back on to Rogan in January with some of these guys and go over it. And on Rogan's Instagram, he posted a picture. Everybody was there. Randall posted a picture. Everybody's there. And then guess what didn't come out? That episode. So that episode is missing. Joe has never addressed it that I'm aware of. Randall hasn't addressed it. Was just like, oh, wait, we filmed it and it's up to Joe to do what he wants to do with it. So it's like we're so close to there, but also we're at a perfect point for like the mad scientists and the grifters to come along and really can make things seem one way that aren't, you know. And I know Rogan's not a scientist or anything, but also he's this giant brand. He's not going to put something out that's like complete bullshit. So it's just like, I know we're so close, and there's so many stories of people with free energy who've come out, who've turned cars running on just water, and then, you know, they're suicided, they're poisoned, they're like whatever it might be, the 2 gunshots to the back of the head suicide, you know, things like that. And it's just to keep us in this path, you know, of not fully understanding. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just control?
It's control, and it would turn the entire structure of society on its head. It would be flip everything upside down, and they don't want that to happen. So they're holding on as long as they can to make sure that things stay the way that they are, because the rich people continue to get richer, et cetera, and they don't want that. So they're going to hold on as long as they can. But it's inevitable at this point now. So I mean, maybe it's not inevitable, but because they're still doing a good job of stopping, of trying to plug the hole in the dam. But as long as people just keep pushing forward and keep asking questions and keep trying to get to the answer, hopefully we will in our lifetime.
I hope so. So we're recording on Wednesday. Tomorrow is Thursday, October 26th. And you're not supposed to mention dates. Keep this evergreen. So tomorrow's supposed to be Thursday, October 26th. And they're going to have the SCIF meeting, the secret room where you can talk about classified documents, and they're bringing in whistleblowers. So the one senator I saw came out, congressperson, not sure who she was. She came out and said that David Grush wanted to come, but he was asking for flight and lodging. Like he didn't have to pay for his own flight and lodging. And she's like, I can't do that. I don't have a budget for this. So I'm not sure if he's not coming or if they got money from somewhere else, or we have no money to fly. We're not going to get it. Just print it, people. You've been doing this for 100 years. You really did it the last 3 years. Print the money. Just bring the guy here.
That sounds like BS. Yeah, he's actually been, so like at first when he first came out and did that interview with Ross for News Nation, immediately after he was not silenced. I think he was threatened. Basically, they were like, "That's it. You're not." He did not go outside of his confidentiality agreement, but they stopped him from doing any more interviews. But since then, he's done a couple, and it's he's not really saying, he's not saying anything that he's not supposed to say. So it's not like, oh, he didn't say anything here, but on this podcast he did. But it's just cool to hear him talk more about what he's been involved in, and what they're doing to stop it. And yeah, there's supposed to be like a lot more people have been doing this since they opened up the floodgates and said, people are now allowed to come in and talk to us and not get in trouble.
They did the Whistleblower Act.
Yeah, which is crazy too, because like the term whistleblower, he's not a whistleblower because he's legally saying these things, which is so weird and convoluted and complicated and crazy. The whole thing doesn't really make sense. It doesn't. But a whistleblower is like someone like Edward Snowden or Julian Assange, who came out and like, surprise, that's a whistleblower. Coming out and doing it formally is not really a whistleblower, but now leads us to, we can write a song about whistleblowers. I like there's a term about it, but
working out for you guys. No, but that's true. So a whistleblower, and he's like, oh, I received bad reviews. Like, oh, did you? Go ask Julian Assange how his bad reviews are going. Go ask Edward Snowden, who's not allowed back in the United States, like how that's going for him. But like you weren't promoted but you still had your job, and like, or people didn't have lunch with you. Like it also kind of seems like a little perfect for our generation, right? Perfect for like this Twitter atmosphere of like, my feelings were hurt and I feel like I should. So he has to submit all of his questions that he wants to answer. He's like, oh, they asked me, A through Z. They asked me everything. And they're like, okay, answer this, can't answer that, can't answer that, answer this. So that's why during the hearing, he starts talking, or he's like, oh, I can do that in the SCIF. I can do that in the SCIF, which also in itself is an answer. It's crazy. And I just find it nuts that some of the stuff that he says and the news just doesn't seem to care.
It's like, don't look up. That movie is so accurate. It is so incredibly accurate to today, and that movie actually inspired the artwork for the song End of the World that we put together, because, if in that artwork, I have a giant tidal wave coming, the city's burning, and you got in the background, you have, I have Elon Musk and Bezos flying in their spaceships to Mars, and everyone is just on their phone. I put some kids too, and they're just on their phone, not paying attention. There's a meteor coming toward and nobody's paying attention. And that's just what it is. That's just what it is, And
like, why are we not more outraged that if the government has had UFOs, if Roswell really happened, if they're finding ancient ones at archaeological digs, okay, where was the Sunoco back then? Oh, they weren't using gasoline. So what were they flying with that you're getting into or you're looking at? So like, I don't have to pay my electric bill this month. I don't have to pay my gas bill this month. Like Tesla technology, is any of that truly real and better? But
because if that came out, then we wouldn't have It would change the entire power. So everything would be free. We would have free energy. They don't want that, because look at all of the institutions and corporations that have been built on that alone. That's where most of the money in the world is. It would just I don't know. But I look at it as like, well, then why wouldn't you then maintain that position by investing in and innovating in that new technology? So then Exxon, instead of becoming or being, like the gas giant, becomes this free energy giant. But I think I'm probably simplifying it, and that's where there's so many people that are already invested in this that would then, and I think that's too where it comes into, and that's the other thing too, like if this bill goes through that Chuck Schumer put through, and it gets passed, and all the people, private citizens and private companies that have these pieces of things are supposed to turn it into the government, but then they have a year to do it. That gives them a year to move it. I'm sure they've already done that now, but they're keeping it for themselves because they all want the power. Everyone wants to be whoever has this technology, as Luis Elizondo said, whoever has this wins. That's it. There's no one, you're the top. And I think everyone has these things, and they've all been working on it in secret. And, everyone's trying to be at the top of the ladder, and it's not, there's only one top of the ladder. So it's so convoluted. It's so
this
crazy.
goes back to Lazar and Grush, that Lazar was only given a small piece to work on, allegedly, from what he said. He was given a small piece to work on, and the guy before him apparently didn't work out too good for him. He's like, oh, he tried to cut it in half with this, and like, don't do that one. So he's trying to work on this, but he also doesn't know like the rest of the ship. Like he said he was in one ship for a little bit, but like for the most part, he wasn't working on, oh, that's the steering wheel, and that's the brakes, and that's the wheels, and that's the door. He was like, okay, this is one piece of the engine. Figure that out. And then Grush goes on and says like, hey guys, there is somebody above us who's in control of all of this, and they have all this stuff, and we're not getting any of it. And they're like, well, who are they? Then tell us the names. Like, I don't know. I just know that there's another agency above us. And then Congress like, well, no, we didn't authorize them. They can't have that. So you don't know who's in control. You don't know what was given private. Lazar was supposed to be Area 51 or whatever, but all this stuff went off to like Skunk Works and all that, all went off to private industry because you can't FOIA them. You can't get any of that stuff come back. So, hey guys, turn it in. Turn what in? It's the Simpsons. You the $3 million check, and you let Castro hold it for a minute, and he's like, oh, where's the $3 million bill? He's like, what $3 million bill? But you're not giving it back. Yeah. Where's the paperwork? There's no paper trail.
Yeah.
And then Chuck Schumer's going to get this passed, and then he's going to go, well, no, this is all we have. Oh, we found a wheel, and we have a door, and we have this little piece of metal. We don't know what it is, but it could also be a windshield wiper. Like,
exactly. I mean, and that's like the ARROW report that just came out. They're hiding behind the language in it, where they're saying they're out of the cases that we've studied, there is no known cases where people have been injured by being in close proximity to or working on or being around UFOs. But there are documented cases. The I don't know if you've seen that the citizens disclosure hearing, citizens hearing on disclosure. It was hours and hours of these people that worked for the military, for the government, coming in front of Congress people and giving testimony that happened with David Grush. But it was like, they couldn't get that, so they decided to do this anyway. Citizens disclosure hearing on disclosure. And they're like Richard Peniston, who was there at the Bentwaters incident. Him and his partner got very sick and ill from it. But how are you going to get they wouldn't give him medical benefits, because why are we going to give you medical benefits if you got hurt from something that we say doesn't exist? But they kept fighting and pushing for it. And eventually John McCain, they went to John McCain, and John McCain authorized it. And now they got medical benefits from being in close proximity to a UFO on a military base.
They're not going to give people anything. They had burned pits in Iraq, and people were breathing. They'd burn refrigerators. They'd burn computers. They would burn everything. Like they did not, there was no recycling. You burned everything. And if the winds changed and it blew over the base, you were breathing in burning plastic. And these people had to fight for years to get medical attention. And they're, well, that's classified stuff that we were burning. Like it's called the fucking burn pit, man. The guy was in charge of it and like poured lighter fluid on every hour. Like this is not classified. You poison people. There's a guy I used to work with in the casino. He maybe was in Vietnam. I don't know, but he was in the Navy. So they would go on the ship, and he was like, hey man, like some days are just boring. But if you took the motor oil and poured it over a loaf of bread, and I don't think it was motor oil. It's whatever liquid they had. There's some army liquid, and you poured it over a loaf of bread. He's like, what came out the bottom? He's like, you would get rocked on that. He's like, people were drinking that. Like, that was a party drink. And then this guy, when I was talking to him, he had all the cancers. He had like not working out well for him. He passed away shortly after so I worked with him for 2 years. So he probably 20 years after being out, so not Vietnam, so 20 years after being out of the Navy, dead, cancer. Son was born, horrible cancer, passed away. So the stuff that you're drinking, and he's not getting benefits, they're never going to admit to any of this stuff. Like, oh, a UFO came down and zapped you with light? Like, that's not happening.
Exactly.
Very sad. I hope we can, turn this around a little bit with it. I'm really excited for the hearings. How much hope do you have? Do you think like this is controlled disinfo? Do you think it's like almost like a counterintelligence being run on us?
I don't think so. From the stuff that I've been watching, I think that this is what they've been preparing us for. So like they've said, like, oh, over the years, they put spaceships in movies and stuff to, slowly get people used to it. So it wouldn't be a shock. And if you think about it, all of that's been happening. It's been decades. That's what they're talking about. Like the U.S. government has been covering this up for decades. Well, it's been decades. And now it's at a point where people are more accustomed to it. And so, I don't know, I keep hearing people say like next year, 2024 is going to be the year that we find out whatever it is that we find out. And I think that it's more than just, oh, yes, there are aliens and, dealing with them for years and talking with them for years. And we have agreements with them and they're here and living on that. I think all of that is true. But I think the source of all of this really is something wild and weird. And that's why they haven't been telling us, because it's going to be too much for people to handle, more so than just, yes, there's aliens. Well, obviously there's aliens. Come on. Like, we're the only living thing, the only planet with, that would be just stupid to think that. But I think it's something else. And I'm thinking now that what it might be is God, the angels, the demons, the devil. I think that is the aliens and the werewolves and blah, 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 and everything. I think it's all the same thing. I think that even that, like we were saying in the beginning of this, that, all the paranormal things tie into the same thing. Because think about that. All right, we don't have okay, so we saw some photos here of some purported, spaceships and things. But we don't have any photos of God and Jesus, and people believe in that. So why, right? Why don't we have any photos or evidence and video? Maybe there are some things, but I think it's the same thing. I
saw Jesus on a piece of toast once. I saw a picture of that.
That's pretty crazy, right? The universe has a sense of humor.
Looks a lot like him.
But it actually does look a lot. It's the bread. It's something in the bread. There's something in the bread. But yeah, I don't know. It's annoying, this drip, drip, drip of information of how it's coming out. It's very annoying. And especially when you have these people that are going on these podcasts, but you got to look at it from both sides. Like, so I'm a huge fan of the Weaponized podcast, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. Yep. I should actually say George Knapp's names first, actually, but like it is Jeremy Corbell's thing. But, the stuff that they've been talking about has just been fantastic. And their second to last episode, they had Jim Lakatsky on, and he ran the UFO program, and he's just said that yes, we have at least one. We know there's more than one, but he admitted we have one UFO that we have, and we were able to breach the hull, get inside of it. And then, well, what? I can't tell you what it is. And any other question after that, he can't say. So it's like, well, what is the point of coming on guess what, everyone? I have something to tell you, and it's, like, what is the point of that? However, if you look on the other side, he did go on a podcast and say what he said. So the same with David Grush. I think people are focusing on the wrong. It's annoying and frustrating, but I think people tend to focus on the wrong thing. Well, he keeps saying all these things, but I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. Right. But think about all the things that he is talking about and that he is saying. It is ridiculous that they're like, you can say everything up to this point, But look at like the redacted government documents from the government where they have a piece of paper and everything's crossed all blacked out, but there are some things on there. That's basically what he's doing. He's reading the some things on there. I mean, it's getting to the point now where we're going to find out, I think, a little bit more about what's underneath the blacked out part. But I think it's still like the other thing like people like to say is that everyone's waiting for disclosure with a capital D. And it's not. That's not going to happen like that. It has happened. It is happening. We're in it right now. And people say, well, if there really are aliens and there really are UFOs, why don't they land on the White House lawn? Okay, first of all, the White House lawn is not the center of the globe. Second of all, they did. They did. The UFOs did there's a flap that happened way back in, I think, in the 40s or the 50s.
It was like 52 or something, like three UFOs flew right over a picture and everything. And like, you'd be like, well, that's fake, except that it's been out forever.
Forever.
Right? Yeah.
And that's the other thing that's really fascinating about this. For the longest amount of time, everyone was discredited and made fun of on purpose when we talked about these things. But now that it's becoming more acceptable and more accepted, now it's going to be fun and interesting to go back to all those cases that people were just flipping about. What if they really were telling the truth? Now all those old stories take on a whole new meaning because, like, oh my God, maybe they really is real. I don't know. I'm excited for that. It's almost like kind of like you bought all those tapes and then CDs came out and you had to buy all your tapes and CDs again. But then it also forced you to revisit everything and revisit those albums that you love. So I think the same kind of thing may happen here.
All the old stuff. Like, that's what I fell in love with. Like the In Search Of and like Sightings was a show, and the Unsolved Mysteries every once in a while would dive into that. So I was listening to a podcast the other day, The Confessionals with Tony Merkel, and his guest was on. The guy was a pro wrestler and he ran for Congress in Illinois or something. But there's this alien interview from maybe came out like in late 70s, early 80, and he's making a documentary on this. He hasn't made one penny on it. He's like using his own money. And he has gone back and found like there's little markings on the video that was sent out, and they're like just like random letters. But he was able to reach out to other people and like piece together like what these letters mean, because it was I forget what it's. I'll send you a link to the show, but it was really good. But they're going on. They're like, oh well, that branch of government doesn't exist. Like that unit doesn't exist. And he was talking to somebody, he brought it up, and the guy's like, you ever mention that again? He's like, you're gonna get like let this go. So he let that go. He's able to find out who this one doctor was because someone brought it up, reached out to the wife, and she's like, oh, he passed away. He's like, oh, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. He's like, hey, was he good? He was an army doctor. And he's like, they ever tell you any stories? And she's like, the weird thing is, like, when we retired, we lived with a lot of like army guys and like buddies, and you get together and you tell some war stories, you tell some basic training stories, and there's jokes, and even like the bad stuff was like, it's kind of funny years later and it's not so terrible. And like, he never shared anything. And she's like, he never opened up. He would clam up when stuff would come up. She's like, I always found it weird, but it was like, he's a nice guy. That's just something he wants to not focus on. So the guy's like, what if I told you that I have this video of him doing an interview with an alien, and there's somebody telepathically answering for the alien? And the lady was like, I actually would say that makes a lot of sense, and it gives me peace to know that like, he actually was doing something in the army, that like this wasn't some like horrible maybe that is horrible PTSD, but it wasn't like this horrible PTSD thing, not burning down the Vietnam village or whatever, that he was interviewing an alien. So really interesting stuff. This guy is going back and doing that. But that's all the stuff that like we kind of saw growing up, like these fuzzy VHS tapes, a copy of a copy, and it was tough. But to go back and look at those, but those poor people's lives were ruined who came out with this and were mocked and shamed, and they're the best in their field. And people like, oh, this crackpot.
Right now, it's like, well, this person who's saying it is the best in their field. You should believe them. Before they were like, oh, no. Like, no, these are real people, legit people that chose to risk their lives in some cases.
Their lives are ruined completely.
Yeah, it's really sad, I think, for some of these people. It's the crazy old uncle at Thanksgiving. And it's like, oh, he's going to tell me stories again. Like, dude, that guy was dropping knowledge on you, and super new things. Do any of your YouTube deep dives or anything you're interested in? Do you go back to like Tartaria or any of that? The like ancient erased civilization. This is like the people that are leading to Atlantis and Lemuria, and there are, again, this we live in the best of times, we live in the worst of times. The best of times are I get to talk to you guys through the computer. We're on Zoom. I see you crystal clear. This is great. Making connections you normally might not. And the worst of times is everything can be CGI'd. You could be CGI'd for all I know right now. How do I know you're real? But they have some of these ancient maps in like the Russian China area. It was Tartaria, and it was supposed to be this advanced civilization. This is like a lot of like, why have things gotten worse? Why is the Parthenon made out of marble and it's so beautiful? Why are all these buildings, why are the Egyptian pyramids made that we can't lift now? Why is Göbekli Tepe that like we don't have any of this stuff now? So some people are saying that's like the Tartarian offshoot. Like kind of goes like the mud flood. And if you do any of that stuff, you a mud flood guy?
Sounds familiar. That I think I've heard like Randall Carlson say that.
Yeah. So his is a little different. This is more of
Mud floods.
I may have twisted Tartaria and the Atlanteans. I'll have to go back and look into that. Mud flood, though, it kind of goes to the World Fair in the 1800s that the settlers went across. There's no pictures of anything ever being built. Like you built San Francisco, like never took a picture. No one ever took. Like they had cameras then. Like you built an amazing city. You built all this stuff, but some of this stuff is found. And then as they're digging to put pipes in to run sewers, they're actually finding that the buildings have windows buried under the ground. So that's as they went here and you're excavating things, you can actually see that it was actually 10, 15, 20 feet of more building that was down there. Then the mud flood came. These people survived it, did whatever, showed up and it was there, paved it, made floor number 2 or 3, floor 1. Some of them were supposed to have elevators that were already in there. So like pretty advanced, and it came through. It also comes through like there's the orphan trains in the 1800s. All this stuff like ties together, makes you seem like batshit insane. But like as you sit here and look at it, it's like, well, there were orphan trains. Where'd all these orphans come from?
Well, it's funny you said that. There's an ad agency that I work for in Old City, and they moved out of one of the buildings, and I went to help. I was helping one day clean up, and we went down into the basement, and they're like, "Oh, have you ever been in the basement here?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, show Jamie the basement." I'm like, "Okay, what?" Go down underground. There is a storefront, just like you're describing, in the basement of this building where there's windows and everything. I'm like, what is this? And they said, well, when Philadelphia was first founded, it was lower on the ground and they built it up. I'm like, wait, so they just put dirt over top of an old building? Like, but sure enough, there it is under there. Like, there's no door, but you can see there was like all these old shoes and things in there that look like they're from the 1700s. And I'm like, this is an artifact. This is in the basement of this ad agency. Like, what? Very creepy, very, very strange. But the way you're describing this, it sounds just like, I was like, wow, that's the ground level was lower. And they didn't really explain exactly like, well, then they built dirt over time. Not exactly how that happened, but sure enough.
And not that I'm expecting these people have an answer or anything, but this is the cognitive dissonance that people have. They're like, where did 20 feet of dirt, like the whole city was built up? Like, so New Jersey was just excavated, or like Ohio was like Pittsburgh. Like, where are you getting this stuff from?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I live in a weird world, man. We just live in such a weird world. And I hope this is like part of disclosure. Like I don't like the mainstream news as much. Like I prefer independent sources, and I also prefer like some of this like wild stuff. But the other day I just saw, so the moon is 47 million years older than they thought it was. They just like reassigned its birthday, and they're like, oh, it's actually a lot closer to Earth's birthday than we thought. Like, okay, like how do you guys know anything if you just make stuff up all the time? Like you were so certain. I would have failed my science test for saying the moon was 47 million years younger, but you just redo this. Yeah. So then they found this Neanderthal, and they're like, oh, this was Neanderthal, and the humans would actually mate with it. But then they were looking at its DNA and was like, actually, it has ancient human DNA in it that like it ran into from even before. So now we have to kick back the human timeline a little bit. It's all just made up.
Yeah.
They just throw shit at the wall and they quiz you on it, and then you have to believe it. Like, I don't know. And that's why when people come around and they talk about flat earth, like I don't just laugh at them right off. So I'm like, all it takes is like 2 to 3 generations to teach people that like, hey, this is what happened in the 1600s. Like there's no verification. The books change. The CDs change from tapes to CDs, and who knows if they changed the lyric on the song. You're like, oh, I remember it being like the
Bernstein Bears.
The Bernstein Bears, the Mandela effect, right? So there was a Jimmy Kimmel car karaoke or whatever, and he had George Clooney riding around, and they were singing Queen, We Are the Champions. And the end of the song, I think it was George Clooney, and I think Julia Roberts was in there, and I think it was Jimmy Kimmel. A lot of I thinks here. Great story. So the three of them are driving around. They're all singing "We Are the Champions," and at the end, it's "Of the World," and it never came. And all three of them sang, and they all looked at each other like, "Where's that part of the song?" And they're like, "Oh no, actually, it wasn't there." And the only time it was, there might have been this B side that was released for a little bit, and then it rolled in the next song. And "Of the World" was actually the second part. Like, the bullshit that you're telling us that's true is so much worse than just saying like, "Oh, we re-recorded," or "Sorry, it was a new," like something that's better.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's worse. Exactly. You're
my
God.
just saying the truth.
Right. But it doesn't take long to just change everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, even now we're living through history now, and you see stuff on TV, and you're like, that's not what just happened last week. But that's how it's going to end up in the history book, and our kids and their kids are going to learn it and be like, man, hey, in 2020, this happened. Like, no, that didn't. But I'm not going to be around anymore to tell them.
Yeah, it only takes what happens is like it only takes one generation for history to change, because once all the people from that generation pass away, if something isn't documented or if that's all destroyed, that's it. It's gone.
There's
And
nobody to be like, no, that's not how it happened.
Right. They just had, maybe it was the anniversary of Newsies or whatever. Like, I never saw the movie, never like clicked to me what it was. But they were showing like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, there were like these newsboys that joined together because they found out that William Randolph Hearst was charging them more for a sack of papers and like taking some of the papers out, and they were making less money. So it's all these like 10-year-olds with cigarettes hanging out of their mouth and, you know, like rolled up in their sleeve and, but, you know, more manly than I'll ever be. This was like the real life picture of them. And they're like, oh, all these kids were orphans living in New York City. Like, and they were all like, what? So like just hundreds of people just gave their kids away. Like, just,
yeah, right.
I get that like once or twice, like maybe there's an accident or something, like everybody just had. But like then even, you know, they that good Irish Catholic family, and, you know, you have 10 kids, like that never really changed till recently. But like where are all the orphans in the 50s? Where are all the orphans? Like this wasn't the Great Depression. That the year that they showed the picture, I was like, okay, I guess the stock market, but those people didn't even own stocks. Like, what are you talking about? I don't know. But it's just not the stuff that they tell you. You just don't think of it. Like, oh, there was actually orphan trains and they shipped them out to Colorado, all these orphans. Like, what?
What?
Okay. Yeah, just take my kid. Good. See you.
Where the heck did they come from? That's insane to even think that the parents are just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of what gives some credence to like the mud flood type of thing. Like, well, you know, if there was a tsunami or something and it just pushed all this mud on the ground, like maybe some kids survived and a lot of adults didn't. Or as they were rebuilding, they're like, man, I can't take care of my kid. I can't even take care of myself right now. And they organized something, you know, but like, I don't know. And it's tough now with CGI. You see pictures and it's just like, shit, is that real? Is it not? Is it?
Nothing's real anymore.
Nothing. It's all, this isn't even real. This is, I'm a blurry picture to you guys. It's all fuzzy. I'm supposed to be, I'm not a fossil from the future. This is 1960s technology over here. You guys are crystal clear. Yeah, not over here. My light's like an old grandmother light. Give me that yellow cast. Like jaundice. There's a lot happening. All right, we're off the rails. All right, let's touch on some cryptids real quick. What's your favorite?
Well,
or what do you think is most believable? Or maybe they're the same.
I mean, I've grown to love Bigfoot, but we watched recently a documentary. What's it called? About small town picture. What was they called?
Small Town Monsters.
Small Town Monsters. Yeah, that movie production company. That just little by little, each movie they make just gets better and better and better. And they just made one on werewolves that's really pretty cool. It's kind of funny. There's this couple in there that have known each other since they were 10. And
10
they just
years.
keep saying it. There's totally an aside. It has nothing to do with them. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. But it's just so funny because I think they're trying to add credibility to each other's story. And they're like, oh, I mean, we've known each other since we were 10. And they say it 30 times. And like, and I know like this has been edited. So how many times did they say, and we've known each other, we know each other since we were 10. But they're telling these stories, and then there's this one story of this guy driving on a truck down the road and in the dark, and then they see this thing, and it puts its hand up in front of the truck. And it was almost like, "Don't hit me." But then they were saying, like, this is the truck. The truck was this high. It must have been huge. And then recently, now driving around at Halloween, and you see everyone with their things outside their decorations, And there's this one decoration that is this giant werewolf. You know, they have the giant skeletons now. They're 10 feet high. I don't know how big they really are. They're giant.
They're huge.
But there's a giant werewolf one that's part of these Halloween decorations. You can probably get it at Lowe's. But I'm like, is that real? Like, so if a werewolf is a real thing, and obviously, like, you know, it happens, and then the person's body changes and things like that. But do they really grow like another 8 feet taller? Like, I don't know, but the way they're telling a story, you can tell they're not making it up. You can tell when people are making things up. You can just see. And like, they're not making it up. So if it wasn't a werewolf that they saw, what was it that they saw? I don't know, but I'm getting more and more fascinated about that. And then there's another story in that movie where this woman who owned a store, like I have friends too that own like a paranormal bookstore. It's called On Angel's Wings. And they say that people come in all the time into the book. I'm sorry, into the store and into the bookstore and tell them stories like, this happened to me. This happened to me. And they talk about how people will come into the store to just drop by and they end up standing there for 2-3 hours and telling them stories. I'm like, people just tell us these stories. And this woman in this movie owned a bookstore or a store, paranormal kind of store. And this guy came in and he said, I'm a werewolf. And you're like, oh, he was like, okay. But then the more he told her about it, he's like, yes, I'm a werewolf. It was my father. It's passed down through the generations, and it happened to me. And when that time, and it sounds insane, but if any of these other things are real, then why can't that be real? And they said, man, they didn't have any pictures or anything like that, but they said that she told her friends about it, and this guy, as it got closer to the full moon, he started to change. And then he had a job, I think they said at Walmart. And they went, and she was like, she told her friends, like, look, this guy's come to talk to me. And I noticed that his features have changed. He works at Walmart. Can you go to Walmart and look for him and just tell me that I'm not crazy? And her friends went into Walmart and said, like, I've seen him. He was acting strange and his facial features did change. So if that's real, then like, yeah, werewolves. I mean, I don't want to meet one, but that's now my, something that I thought for sure wasn't real. And the same thing like Bigfoot, I always thought that was just BS. But then Bigfoot started to come up in all the alien stuff and have like, and on Skinwalker Ranch, they said that a portal opened up in the sky and a Bigfoot crawled out, dropped down, and then the portal shut and disappeared. And then he went running away. What? What? I never thought of that. I just thought Bigfoot was something that lived in the Appalachian Mountains. And it was just this Yeti type creature that just, somehow stayed alive through, the Loch Ness Monster. How would something like that survive? But, it's the same thing like Bigfoot. I thought it was just some kind of thing. And of course, I always just thought there was just the one Bigfoot. And like, there was Bigfoot. But no, it's Sasquatch and it's a breed of, whatever. If that's real, I don't know. What's your favorite?
Brenda,
what's your favorite first, Brenda?
My favorite. Oh.
Your favorite cryptid?
I really like Bigfoot. I think that's freaking amazing. Like I love it. Like just like a big giant creature that's like kind of, just going through the woods and just like exploring and just messing with people. I think that's freaking amazing. Like, I love that he's messing with people. Like, it's I don't know. Like,
he's messing with people.
Just like, he's scary. I'll just mess with him a little bit. I don't know. Yeah.
What are these stories?
I don't know. I feel like he messes with them. I don't know. Like, throwing rocks and everything and all that.
Oh, okay. Like, so, oh yeah, we've seen some Bigfoot stuff. I see what you're saying now. Okay. Yeah. I'm just picturing Bigfoot running around like, it's 12 o'clock. Time to go scare some people.
I always love like the whole like idea of like horrifying instances, and I think for me, like that's just the coolest thing because of how scary it is to me. But so that's why I'm like really interested in Bigfoot, and that's really, really pretty cool to me.
So I like Bigfoot. I think that was like the first one that I liked of the cryptids. And there's sightings in the Pine Barrens of him. I don't give those too much credence. I am interviewing a guy who he has a Bigfoot podcast and he goes out hunting in the Pine Barrens. There's times where the Pine Barrens is huge, and there's other times where you're just kind of driving in the middle of the woods and it seems like it'd be hard for Bigfoot to like cut across. And you have the ocean on one side, then you have some woods. There's a lot of swamp and marshes and the cranberry bogs and like where are you living? But it's also really hard to hike into there. But like kids are always four-wheeling in Wharton State Forest. Like I just feel like there would be more of seeing him. But then when I drive up to the Finger Lakes in upstate New York, and once I get up into Northeast Pennsylvania, I'm like, oh no, Bigfoot's real. Like there's 100% no doubt that there are creatures living in these woods, that there's no houses. They're a mile apart. If there is a house that's to the back of this mountain, like you can't walk up to it. You can't go sledding on it when it snows. Like I'm surprised we don't have like goats or whatever living, rams and stuff. Well, this is how steep and terrible it is. There's no way this thing doesn't live up there if it wants to.
Right? Can stay hidden.
Yeah, I just find that strange. So I like Bigfoot, and Dogman is my new favorite. I've been going back and forth with this guy who wrote a book on Dogman. I'm trying to land him to get him on the podcast. Our schedules have really not matched up at all. But I find that so fascinating. Again, Tony Merkel, I think he has a top-notch podcast called The Confessionals with Tony Merkel. I base some of mine off of what it is. Of like, hey, if you have a story, you want to come talk about it or whatever it is, or if I find a guest, like you tell your own personal truth. Like I'm not here to judge people. Like if you said that you saw an alien, I wouldn't grill you too hard. Hey, tell me your story. We're here to talk about it. We're here to see what's happening. This isn't a congressional hearing. We're not getting down to like, what, how did the fly here? And that fuel doesn't exist. Like, I'm not here for that. Let's hear it. So he had this sheriff on, who maybe Louisiana or somewhere, but he was the sheriff and the head of his FOP. So like these are big deals to police people, to get elected sheriff, to be the head of your department, to get elected the head of your union or, the little part of it to represent everybody. Like you're trustworthy. You're there. This is small town stuff. You're serious. People turn to you to tell you things to help with. He went hunting with another police officer, and they go out and they drove a couple hours, and they're going to camp out there for the night. And while they're out there, I think they're turkey hunting or whatever. So he's like in the middle of a field, and a piece of corn comes flying by his head, like a corn cob comes flying by his head. Oh. He's like, that's weird. And he's like, a couple more corn cobs keep coming at him. He's like looking around, thinking someone's messing with him. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to head back to camp. If somebody is messing with me, it's a person. Like, I don't want to shoot them. Like, kind of safety in numbers. We'll just go back. We're not going to pull the whole police thing on them. So as they're going back, he's like hearing things. He feels like he's being followed. He's catching glimpses off to the side of the trail. So he goes back and meets up with his partner. His partner's super agitated. He's like, hey man, what's happening? He's like, dude, I'm out in the field. He's like, people are throwing corn cobs at me. Like something's throwing it. I feel like I'm being watched. Like, hey, same thing happened to me. So they're sitting there, and a dog man, they have the campfire going. A dog man approaches the part of the story. They met another hunter earlier in the day, and they talked to him. Both their names were Bubba, so they were buddies already. They both had the same name, and they're like, hey, you're going to camp over here. We're going over here, but like you could tell they both were serious parties who weren't going to mess with each other. So he comes back and they're talking, and they have a fire, and a dog man is walking like right at them. And they're like, I can't believe my eyes. I know what's happening. My partner has a shotgun. I have my handgun drawn, and all of a sudden I'm in police mode. I'm like, hey, you need to freeze. Like my partner's like not moving at all. We fired this thing. It kind of stops. It also kind of looks like it smiles at us, and it backs up a little bit. It's going on. He's like, a second dog man comes and jumps on top of this ledge. It's like 20 feet above us, and it's like kicking boulders down at us. And we're like, dude, we got to get out of here. So they run. Like all of a sudden, he's like, we went from like dream zone and like fading out to like it all clicks, and they run and jump in the truck, and he starts driving. And as they're going, the dog man like jumps onto the side of the car and digs its nails on the side and rips off part of it. They turn on the headlights. There's Bigfoot in the field. He's like, I'm puking on myself. He's like, So this is a serious man. He sounds like he's in his late 60s, early 70s. Serious man. He's like, I am puking on myself. I am shaking to death. He's like, I did number 1 and number 2 on myself. I would not expect a person to come onto a podcast and talk about how they pissed and shit themselves, right? He's like, I did this in the car. He's like, I'm going to speak for my partner now because he passed away, and I feel I can tell the story now too. He's like, he did the same thing. They go, they get away. This thing's chasing them. They pull over the car, and like they're sweating, they're puke. They check, like the car's ripped up and everything, and they drive to the state police barracks the next day. And they go there, and there's police cars everywhere. And they finally get cleaned up a little bit and get in to talk to somebody. And like, hey man, like we saw something in the woods. And they're like, no, hey, we had a bear come down and got this camper and, killed him. So he found out later, and through this, it was the guy that he met, Bubba, was killed in the woods. And they said it was a bear. He's like, bears don't live in this area. And then later he found out that Bubba was like torn to shreds. So he thinks that, like, so this guy coming on, I find that story very credible. This isn't.
Wait, where did this happen?
I think so maybe a part of Texas or Louisiana. I think it's called Devil's Triangle, but I can send you guys the episode. It is fascinating. It is. I'm not going to do a whole Tony Merkel podcast recap here because I have another great story that you tell real quick. So I'll do another great story. You guys can fast forward 30 seconds, get over it.
No.
Not you. You're stuck here. You can't fast forward anything. This is for the listeners. Yeah. So another one, he has this guy call in. Sounds like a good old boy. Lives in Ohio, and he lives on a dirt road. He lives on one house. His mom lives up like further up the street, another house. And he's like, oh, all like growing up, like we would hear stuff in the woods or whatever. It's kind of like seasonal. In the spring, they would kind of pass through. He's like, what would pass through? He's like, oh, like Bigfoot would pass through. He's like, it's fine. He's like, so I finally moved to this different road. He's like, I don't really bother anybody. He's like, but I really wanted to. I hunt turkeys. He's like, I really want my he kept calling them gobblers. I want my gobbler. I want to get my gobbler. I buy my tags, all this stuff. He's like, but I plant lima beans. He was starting to plant like these random things to try to attract the turkey they're not used to. He's like, those Bigfoot would come and eat my lima beans. And he was like getting really pissed off. And like during his, there was so much stuff that he was going on. Like you wouldn't make that up. You wouldn't focus on getting mad about lima beans unless you really got mad about lima beans. Like to remember this. And he's going through and he's telling this story. And then 5 minutes in the story, he's like, hold on, I want to backtrack to what I said 5 minutes ago and like pick up where he was 5 minutes ago and then go forward again. So like, again, really hard if you're telling a story, you're making up a lie. Like this is something that happened to you and you can pick it up at any point in the story and go on with it. Like if I said to you, like, Jamie, when's the first time you met Brenda? You probably will tell me the first time you met Brenda, and then you're like, okay, what was your first gig? And all right, well, what were you doing, senior year of high school? You'd be able to tell me these things because you can remember and they happened to you. So he's going on. He's going after this gobbler, and he's along his fence line or along this fence line, and he's dressed up like a bush completely. He's like, I have all this stuff on me. He's like, I have like deer fox on me, a pea on me, like deer pea poured on me to get rid of my human scent. I leave my phone at home, like no electronics, no ringing. He's like, I am not missing this gobbler today. And he's like, and I have my shotgun. I'm sitting there, and he's like, I look just like a bush next to a tree. And he's like, from 15 yards away, I see this Bigfoot come out of the woods. And he's like, he's walking towards me. And I think to myself, if he gets within 15 feet, I'm blowing its head off. He's like, I think got into 15 feet, I blew its head off. And he's like, what? And he's like, I stood over him. He's like, half of its head was gone. It kind of had the face of whatever. It was kind of like, it was one of the reddish ones. He's like, what are you talking about? He's like, oh, there's the reddish ones, there's the black ones, there's the brown ones. I've seen them all. Don't worry about it. He's the reddish ones. They're nasty. So I shoot this thing. I'm looking at it. I'm like kind of staring at it, like, what is this? He's like, and then the other ones start whooping up on top of the mountains. Like they came to see all the action. They know their buddy was shot and killed. And they're whooping, getting like really mad, like throwing stuff down to him. He's like, so I left it and I go and I go call some friends. And, I'm like, hey, man, I shot this Bigfoot. You got to come see it. So he goes back out. His friends don't come yet. He goes back out. The Bigfoot's drug 100 yards up on top of the mountain, but it's still there. So his friends come. They go back up. Bigfoot's gone. Like the next day, he's like, I didn't even report to anybody. I told my friends. I didn't care. He's like, the next day, gaming was there. The gaming officials, the warden or whatever was there. And, hey, we heard you shot something. He's like, I didn't tell anybody I shot anything. He's like, so I don't know if they're being tracked or whatever. Like, I'm not sure it is. But this guy, talking to him, I'm not going to take stock tips. Didn't seem all that bright for that. You want to talk turkey hunting? So that Tony Merkel talking to him, he's like, hey, man, I'd really love to come out and see that spot where it was. And the guy goes, yeah, man, I don't know. So already I'm like, that's a bullshit story. He's like, look, let me bag my 2 gobblers first. Then you can come out. He's like, I don't want you coming around trampling all over my property. And I can't get those Like, that's all he is thinking about. Like his whole life is, I want to get turkeys. When I'm done getting my turkeys, I get my limit. I'm not going to hunt over them. He said, especially now, he gets harassed by the wardens more now. He's like, but I don't go over my limit. He's once I get them, you can come out. So I don't think I've had a follow-up story if he ever did go out. But I found that one, again, very credible of somebody who, like, man, maybe you're talking to him. Like, maybe it kind of sounds like he's missing some teeth. Yeah. Maybe there was a meth party or two he went to. Not too sure. Kind of like Tiger King-ish a little bit. But then also, as he's telling the story and going back and looping back and forth and like a lot of details, but it was really fascinating because he didn't care. He wasn't like, hey, I want to tell you I shot Bigfoot. He was more like, let me tell you about the gobbler. And Tony's like, no, man, like back Bigfoot, like go back to the Bigfoot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Please send these to us.
Yeah, I'll send those. Yeah. There are 2 good ones. And there's another, I will not tell this story. There is a good UFO one that I'll send you about a UFO crash retrieval team. Ooh. And this guy, and then like weird stuff happens in that. But now that I've all my audience now only listens to Tony Merkel and they've left me, that's fine. but I'll send you the 3 episodes.
Some
Oh, I'm so excited.
All right. I've kept you guys here forever. I rambled on. Do you have any other roads you want to cover?
I don't know. I'm pretty bad at like just
All
coming
right,
up with-
Brenda, rapid fire. Loch Ness Monster, real or not?
I feel like there's a lot of like possibility that it could be real, especially since we don't know anything about like sea life really and stuff like that. Like there definitely could exist.
we
Do
don't
you
know
think-
anything about sea life.
Yeah, no, not really. Like real like deep down and everything. And I don't know.
It's not in the sea though.
Well, no, but like it could have like got there somehow from something else. Like it doesn't have to be from where it is. Yeah.
He was vacationing in the loch and then he got stuck there and it was like, well, now I
Yeah,
live here.
maybe
got locked in.
yeah, I don't know. You could have came from a portal or like some kind of other like realm,
Okay.
you know? I don't know.
He could exist. I like it. UFOs, are they from the Earth? Are they from another planet or are they from another dimension?
Another dimension, definitely.
Okay. Can we clone people
Yes.
and they can function? You think they can clone?
I think they can clone people.
Do you think there's lizard people?
Oh, I don't know about that. Well, I mean, I guess there could be lizard people if you like think about all the different things that have, you know, I don't really know about lizard people too much. Is that like a newer thing?
Reptilians.
Reptilians.
Yeah,
I don't-
they're Pindar lives in the center of the earth and he rules everything.
Ah.
And at first I'm like, half that's like bullshit, but then like you see there's some really weird. So the other day, Joe Biden decided he was gonna have a cleft in his chin, that he did a meeting, and then now there's a giant like gap in the middle of his chin. And then he had that for a couple of days. I don't know if they took that away or not. And then somebody was like, "Oh, well, he could have had surgery." Like, well, when did surgery happen, man? Like, this showed up on Monday. Like, he had surgery on Like, it wasn't really strange stuff. So he had like a little, the Peter Family Guy,
Yeah,
Peter
So
Griffin.
maybe he was like
Yeah,
an
yep.
AI type thing or like
Yeah, so some of that they've had. There's amazing pictures of like MSNBC, CNBC, the C-SPAN. There's amazing C-SPAN ones where they stream the Congress floor and people doing speeches, and it just seems like people's necks are kind of peeling up like halfway through. That like a mask is under there or something. Or one time, I don't know if it was Biden or someone else, but their eyelid completely flipped up and just stayed up as they were talking, and they did nothing to move it down or rub their eye or like anything at all. Like your eyelid on its own just flipped up like inside out as they were talking.
Jeez.
Really weird stuff.
I mean, I've seen some video of people purporting that this guy from Congress is look, and you're like, it's a low res stream. That's what, like, what? And then they pause it and they're like, look, watch, and then see his eye go like that. Like, no, it's because he's on an old computer. Like, that's not. But what you're saying though, I'd be interested to see that, because if that's something like that happens, like that's not like the eye thing. That's not like a bit mapping.
Yeah, that's weird stuff. So I'll send you. I'm write down lizard people in my notes. I'll send you some lizard people. But the Joe Biden one just happened. I'm interested. I don't think he's. I don't think I've seen him in a speech since then. He was in Israel, then he came back, and then he had ball sack on his chin. And I'm sure next time he comes out, he's not going to have it at all.
Weird.
It is fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
But now that I've insulted all the people who have cleft chins, let them know they have ball sacks on there. We're going to move on from that. Maybe that'll get cut out. We'll see. But I appreciate you guys coming on. You rock. You're welcome back anytime you want to come on. Where can people find you? What does the future hold for the fossils?
So you can find us on Bandcamp, or just fossilsfromthefuture.com. Also fftfband.com if you don't want to type out Fossils from the Future. We do have a Facebook and an Instagram, but I don't use that. So we'll have a show. I'll make a flyer. I post it on there. I log in, I post it, I log back out. I don't participate in social media. Our next show is November 25th at John and Peters in New Hope. Just going to confirm that is the date. Yep, November 25th, John and Peters, New Hope. We're playing with a couple other really great bands. Emmett Druding, he's amazingly talented. Played a show with him recently with my other band where he was just by himself playing acoustic guitar. I'm not normally a huge fan of that. I'm real into like turn everything up to 11, rock out, So, I mean, I appreciate all kinds of music, but I don't know, like acoustic music, it just loses me unless someone's very special and very talented, and Emmett definitely is. But it's going to be his full band, which I'm really excited about to see, because one of the band members is also a buddy of mine. He makes and sells and fixes his own line of pedals. It's Voltic electronic devices. John Anthony DeMeo, amazing dude. So I'm excited to get to play a show with my buddy. Second band is going to be Cryptic Wave. The drummer from my other band, All Right Jr., Steph Bretman, her band, it's a surf rock instrumental band. They are incredible. They are so good. It's so amazing. It's amazing. It's really cool. And then it'll be us. So John and Peters in New Hope, November 25th. It's a Saturday, so a little bit of a ride for some people, but it's worth it. It's a great little place. I don't know if you've ever been to John and Peters, but it's been there for a million years, and it looks it and it feels it. It's just got a great vibe. It's just a really cool spot. So
it's been here for a million years because of the mud flood, and they lied to us about the timeline.
They probably have a really, really deep basement.
They might actually. They might. And yeah, in the meantime, we're just working on some new tunes, trying to get some new demos recorded. And hopefully this time next year, we'll be in the studio at least. We have so many plans for things. We already have 2 music videos already scripted out. It's just getting, things have to happen in an order. So we got to get the songs recorded first in order to shoot the music videos. But I'm very excited for it. So that's all we got right now. So thank you so much, Brian. This was a pleasure. We enjoyed every minute. Thank you so much.
I love it. Brenda, do you want to plug anything? If anybody's in the Haddon Township area?
I just opened up my own barbershop / hair salon, and you can check it out at Brenda's Barbery and Hair Boutique
on Instagram.
Which is on Instagram, and I don't have a Facebook page yet, but you can find me on Booksy too. I don't know if anybody uses Booksy, but it's like an online service app that you can use to kind of like book haircuts.
Book your appointments.
Yeah, it just opened on August 28th, and I'm nearing my 2nd month, and it's going okay, but I'm always accepting new customers and all that. So
awesome. Before I met Brenda, I would get the worst haircuts, and I would try to explain it. And when I would get a good haircut, I would ask the people for the words to use so I could speak barber-ese, and I would go to another terrible place. And half was my fault for going to terrible places and try to use the same language, and they just couldn't get it. And like, I'm trying to tell them. And then Brenda worked at a place up the street from my house, and first time explained that she just saw it, and then she just did it. And I think that's the only time I've ever had to explain to her like how I want this done. And now we're going on, I don't even know, 5 years or something of the best haircuts. Wow. But also people like, don't book too much, like just give her enough that she needs. But if you take my appointments, I swear to God, I will cancel this episode.
I think you have one on Friday, right?
Yep, I'll be there on Friday.
Today?
Yep.
Or no, Friday this week?
Friday this week.
Awesome.
So thank you so much, guys. I'll put all your socials in the show notes. People can find you. And I have some stuff I have some homework that I have to send you. But I sincerely appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. Bye, Brian.
See ya.
Take care. Bye. All right, everyone. That was our show. Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast. Like and follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date in all things wild and weird. Check out the links in the show notes for more information on our guest. The biggest support you can offer is to tell everyone about the podcast. Until next time.